Hello and welcome to this video editing tutorial. We will be using kdenlive to edit. It's a software available on both Mac and Windows, and we'll use it to learn how to edit some, general style videos, as well as creative ways we can apply very basic editing techniques to get some interesting results. So to start with, I'd like to explain the layout of kdenlive. I like to break it up into 4 sections. So this first square here, I will call it our section 1. This middle square will be our section 2, and this will be section 3, and the large rectangle at the bottom will be section 4. So the reason I split them into these 4 chunks is because of the functions they do or they perform. So you can generally think of this area as your import area, where you import all your videos, your images, your audio, anything you're going to edit, you import them here. That's general. Just think of it as your import window. For here, this is your preview window. Whenever you're editing, so to cut things out, to add things, you need a way to see what you're editing, a way to visualize and preview it. That is what this right section here is for you. Whenever you're editing, you'll be seeing what you edit in this window here. The bottom layer here is where most of your editing happens, like the main bulk of the edit happens here. All your cutting, you're adding in effects, adding in different things, layering things. This is where most of the edit happens. It's called your timeline, and this is the chunk where a large section of your edits happen. I didn't explain this because for now it's not relevant. What is used for is just a way to preview your clips before you import them into your timeline, and you can as well choose what section you want to import. But for now we don't need that, so I will not go into it so that I don't overcomplicate the tutorial. What I will do, however, is if I put my mouse in between these 2 sections, you'll see it changes the icon. So I can now click and drag left to reduce the size of it. So that way it's easier for you to know which section is my monitor. This is called your program monitor, but it's easy for you to know which section is my main preview window, and then this will just be a small section. These are the files we'll work with. I've created 4 files to work with to show different styles of editing and different techniques. So these are the 4 files we'll work with. So to begin, we're going to begin by first of all importing, because to edit anything you first of all have to have it imported into your software. So to import is very simple in kdenlive. You just right click. You'll have a list of options. This is the one you need, add clip or folders. These add various different things. We don't need them for now, but this is the one we need to import. So add clip or folder. Then this has taken me to this folder over here. So that's why I can see the 4 items. You can see 4 items, 4 items. Depending on where the item you want to edit is, you might need to navigate either by clicking on downloads to find where it is, or navigating to wherever you have the files that you want to edit. So it may be on your desktop, it may be in your documents, you will know where it is. So I will first of all import this, the first video I want us to go with, the Mickey lesson 1. So I'll open it. So as you can see, that imported the file here, and this is the preview window like I said, but we will not go into that because it's not necessary for this tutorial. So to bring in this video into my timeline, which is where our main bulk of editing happens, all I simply do is I drag it onto the timeline. Bear in mind that you can see some certain layers. I will go over what those do shortly into the tutorial, but just bear in mind that we do have some layers. So I'll drag it onto this first layer right here. So I'll click and drag. I'm still holding my click. I've not let go of my click. And as you can see, it's asking me which layer do I want it to. If I take it above, it puts it in layer 2. If I take it below, it puts it in layer 1. So I'll just drag it and I'll drop it onto layer 1 by releasing my click. There we go. I've released my click, and that's it on layer 1. Notice how it has a layer on top and a layer below. So this top layer is the video layer. As you can see on the left side, it's V1, V2, A1, A2, and this is the audio layer. So what it does is it puts a video and audio respectively. So if you put a video in video 1, it will put the video's audio in audio layer 1 and video layer 2 in audio layer 2, and it continues that way. We will get more into this as we add in more clips to our timeline, but for now that's just like a general overview of how the layers, or some software call it tracks, how it works. Next, there's this little arrow. Yours might be at the start of your timeline right here. This little white arrow, this is just I'll call it your play cursor. So wherever this is, it will show what is at this point of our timeline. Remember, our timeline is this large rectangle here. This whole thing is our timeline. So whatever is at this timestamp of our timeline, it will preview it here. As there's nothing, it's showing black, but when I put it over this video, you'll see it'll be showing us a preview of this video on our preview window. So I'll just click in this area and drag, and you'll see the playhead moves with me. And notice as soon as it touches the video, you can now see the video's preview on the top right. So for this video, I inserted like a large red section. That's what we're gonna cut out. We can think of this red section, maybe it's a mistake, you know, someone was editing and they, for whatever reason, forgot a big red chunk in, and we've been told, oh, okay, fine, can you guys cut this out for us? So that's what we're gonna be doing in this task. Also, I will mute my audio layer. That's just so that the sound is not interrupting my voice and you can hear me clearly. So I'll just click here to mute it. Bear in mind, if you export your video with this muted, the video will not have sound. So, but this is just for me so you can hear me clearly. So to begin with, to cut the video is quite straightforward. First of all, I'll just seek through the entire video just to see when the red ends. So I can see it ends somewhere around here and it starts somewhere around here. When cutting, it helps to have your play cursor right where the red bit begins. The red bit in this case is what we are trying to cut out. Now, in case you're having trouble lining it up, what you can do is at the bottom of your screen, there's a little scroll bar. And as you notice, there's like a little white bit at the end, at each end. So one white bit at the right and one white bit at the left. What you can do is if you click this and drag, you can use it to zoom in and out. If I click and drag out, it zooms out. And if I bring it closer, it zooms in. So this way I'll have a wider range to work with and it's easier for me to know exactly where the red bit begins. In my case, it's right here. So to cut, I will go on my left side of my screen to the little scissors. That's the razor tool, or in this case, the cut tool. I will click it and notice I have a little red line on my timeline right now. That red line is just telling me where my clip is going to be cut. So in this case, I'll move it right so it's right over the white arrow and click cut. And because my white arrow was where the red bit starts, I've cut right where the red bit starts. One thing I recommend is after you use a tool, always go back to your selection tool, which is the little arrow right here. The reason for this is all these tools do different things. And if you're not careful, you might make a change to your timeline that you're not aware of how to fix or what it does. It might just create a lot of confusing scenarios that you're not sure of. You could always undo, but sometimes you may not notice it in time to undo the mistake. So now just to show that my clip has been cut into two, I will click and drag this to the left so you can see that I have two separate clips. And this clip begins from right where the red bit begins. And this clip has just to the end of the drum playing. So to cut out the rest of the red bit, I will go and scroll all the way to the end of where the red bit ends. So that is somewhere about here. Then I'll go back to my cut tool. I'll put it over the white line and click cut. Now, once again, I have two separate clips. I've changed back to my selection tool. I have two separate clips, one with all red and one with the rest of my video. So to delete this, I'll just right click and I'll say delete selected item, or you can just press delete on your keyboard. Now I can drag these two clips back together and I have one seamless video without any of the red bits. So as simple as that may seem, believe it or not, a very large portion of editing is cutting and joining clips together. You normally have to cut out mistakes. Maybe you're cutting to put it to sync nicely with your music or your soundtrack. Like a large portion of editing is cutting. So with just that one basic technique, you've learned quite a substantial amount of editing. But we'll go into some further techniques shortly. For now, I'm going to clear my timeline. What I mean is just to take it back to a fresh state so we can do a new lesson. So I'll just highlight everything and I'll click delete. I'll highlight this and I'll click delete. And I can leave that there, that's fine. So next, I'll show you how to add text to your project. Now, this can be for various reasons. Maybe you want to add a title, maybe you want to add someone's name or prompts, etc. So to do this, we're going to go to our next video, which is the nature video. And I'll use this as a chance to show you the second way you can import videos into your project. Now, this is quite simple. All you do is you just click and drag it into your project like this. And that's it. You just drag it in and that's it. If you remember, the first way I showed you was to right click and say add clip or folder. They both do exactly the same thing. You may have certain preferences you prefer, but they do exactly the same thing. Now I'll bring this video onto my timeline simply by clicking and dragging as last time. And as you can see, it's asking me which area I want to put it in, and I'll just drop it into the first layer. This is just a simple video. It's just a scroll through forest, but it works well since there's no text on it. So we can add our own text. Maybe we wanted to say, beauty or beautiful. How do we do that? So if you go back to our import area, like I said, if you want to add any image, text, videos, audio, anything you want to add, you add it from this window right here. So I'll right click and I get a list of options, and there's one that says add title clip. So when I click on that, it creates for me this new window. So this is where we are going to create our text. But before that, I recommend at the bottom clicking show background. Now this lets us see what is on our preview window, so that way it's easier to know exactly where we want to place our text. So to place the text, just make sure this is selected. It's already selected for me, but you'll have this little T button. Make sure it's already selected and just click anywhere on the space. As you can see, it has generated for me a little text box to type, and I'll just type beautiful, which is what I wanted to have for my text. You can have whatever you want or whatever you love, but I'll just take beautiful. It's a beautiful scenery. You just want to make it look lovely. So with your text there, if you want to make changes to it, just click and highlight all of it in blue. Then in your right hand side, you have what we call your properties window. Now everything in this property window affects the text, and as you can see, some of the things you'll already be familiar with, things like changing the font type. You have a bunch of different font types. That's the font size. If you want to make it bigger or larger, this is bold, italics. These are things you'll already be familiar with from Microsoft Word, and things you can just generally go through, and they'll be self-explanatory. Two things, however, I want to mention is one, the shadow. It adds a little shadow underneath. So in case you're having white text on a bright background and it's not showing clearly, if you click on shadow, it'll add a little shadow. Let me drag my text a bit, just a little bit higher, so it's a bit easier for you to see. Okay, so I've put the B, it's next to the sky. So when I uncheck shadow, notice how the B cannot be seen. And when I click back to check the shadow, you can now see it clearly. So if you have a very bright background and your text also has bright colors and there's not a clear contrast, you might want to add a shadow to it so it's easily visible. The second one is the typewriter effect. What this does is it makes your text be written one after the other, as if someone is typing it. So I'll click it and I'll say create title. So now to add the text, you just click and drag it onto the timeline. But this is where now the layers come in. Because I want both my video and my title to show at the same time, I will drag this title above my video. If you remember at the start, I said whatever this playhead is touching is what is going to be shown on our preview window. So right now it's touching the video, so it's showing the video. But as I scroll through, it will be touching both the video and the title, and that's why you see both of them at the same time, because it's touching both the video and the title. The reason the text right itself is because of the typewriter effect, like I mentioned. So I'll double click on it to open it up again. I'll click my text, and if I scroll down, this typewriter effect here is what causes it to type itself. So I'll do that one more time. I'll double click on this to edit it. It's grayed out because I have nothing selected. So when I select the text I want to edit, I now get the properties again. And right here, the typewriter effect is what makes it. You can make it go faster, slower by changing these. But for now, that is not too relevant. But the key thing for this tutorial is one, having your title, and two, the layers, the use of two layers. So I have my first video layer and my second video layer. That's why I can have two items to show at the same time. If you ever want two things to show at the same time, be it a video and an image, two videos, whatever it is, they have to be on separate layers and at the same point. So those are the basics to creating your text. Of course, you can always edit it to more accurately suit your needs. Like I said, you just double click on it and you have a list of options. So for example, this one, I'll drag it to the center so it's a bit more aligned. I'll remove the underlining, which is just right here. And I can change the font weight from bold to maybe light. But you don't have to have just one text in one edit window. You can add more if you want. Like I said, you just click on the text button and click in. And now you see I have a second text. So I will say forest, for example. I'll highlight this and reduce the font size to maybe 100. So it's not competing with the beautiful. I will click out because I can't drag it right now. So I'll click out. Then now I can drag the text and put it under here. You can also add other elements, things like photos, rectangles, shapes, depending on what you need. So I'll add a rectangle. So I'll just add this right here. Let's say I was doing someone's name, so an interview. So I'll drag it. To change the color, you click on this little color. So it's where it says solid color. Just click on this little square right here. Then you'll notice you have a bunch of different options. So you can drag it to wherever you want. Let's say I wanted, let's say blue. So I'll drag it to blue. Then this little arrow shows how dark I want the blue. Right now it's on solid black. But as I bring it up, notice this is my preview. Notice my preview changes color to a lighter shade of blue. And then it just picks what color I want. And this picks how light or dark I want it. When you're done, say add to custom colors. Then with this selected, you say OK. and now my text has changed color. So those are just some simple ways of doing it. Of course, this is all easy to just kind of play around with and see, what suits your need and what fits what you want. But it's just like a general overview of how you would, create some text, add it to your title, and this will be for lower third, for example, because now if I click out, I can now add someone's name here, maybe Mr. John, and then that would serve as sort of like a lower third. Let's say it's an interview style video, and I'll have his name at the bottom of the interview while he speaks. So next, we're gonna go to we'll go a bit more on layering. So as you can see, the double layers we have here. I'll explain one more thing with it, a creative way you can use it, as well as a chance for me to just explain a bit more on how the layering works. But first, once again, I'll clear my entire timeline. I'll just click and press delete. Click here, press delete, just so I can have a fresh timeline and it's not confusing with all the different elements. So next, I'm going to show you a creative way to use layers or tracks to make, a fun VFX style video. So this is the video we will be making. So it's just a huge person. He walks into a scene, he jumps up, and when he lands, he's the appropriate size and carries on. It's a very simple effect. I'll show you how it's done. So I'll first of all begin by importing my last two clips, which is the car video. And this is just an image, a still image of the car. So I'll drag in the car clip into my timeline on video layer 1. And as you can see, the original video is just him walking into the scene in regular size and jumping up. Our second media is an image of just the car alone. So if I hover right, it's just the car alone. The top bit has been wrapped up. This was done using Photoshop. You can use any editing software you want. Phones these days can also do just as fine, just rubbed off the top. So if you notice, the playhead is only on the video. He is regular size. But when I bring the car in to cover his legs, he now looks like he's towering over the scene. So it's just a simple case of the car blocking his legs, makes him look like he's a giant person looking down. That's all the effect is. Like I said, being creative with how you layer things to achieve, amazing results, so to speak. So one thing I will do is to change the perspective back, I'll look for when he's jumped over the wall, so to speak, when he's jumped over the wall, or rather over our image, because our image only ends at the wall bit. Then I'll reduce the size of my image, the length it shows. So to reduce the length, if I just hover right, I have this little arrow, so I can click and drag, so it ends where this shows. So after he lands, he'll now land normal because there's nothing covering his legs. If I was to still cover his legs, you wouldn't see him. But because I've stopped the image from showing, it now looks as if he's jumping over the wall. So it's just a very simple effect done creatively using layering. Now, a few more general tips or just, things to note about layering. First of all, you don't have to have only one item in each layer. You can have two items if you want. So as you can see, I have my car image here. If I wanted to, I could still drag a new video and put it here. So now I have two videos on the same layer. I have the car image and I have the nature image all on the same layer. But because the nature layer is above this, when you come to it, this video will now not be visible because this video is now covering the entirety of the car video. That's just an important point to mention. As well, notice that when I brought in the nature video, it brought in a corresponding audio track to the bottom. When I move this, they both move at the same time. It adds the audio to the corresponding bit of the video. So video 2's audio will be added to audio layer 2. Video layer 1's audio will be added to audio layer 1. That's just an important point to note. As well, in case you need more layers and more tracks, if you right click here, you can say insert track. Then just asks you where you want to insert it. You want to insert it above layer 1, above layer 2, so you just choose where you want it. I will insert it above layer 1 just to demonstrate to you that it will now create a new layer above layer 1. So there'll be a layer between layer 1 and between layer 2. So I'll say okay. No, I'll say yeah, I'll say okay. So notice that's created a new video track between them. I'll go back to the option again, and I have 1, 2, 3 video tracks and just 2 audio tracks. So I'll go back again, insert track. This time around, I'll change to audio track, and I'll say above audio layer 1, and I'll click OK. And I have 1, 2, 3 audio tracks and 1, 2, 3 video tracks. Again, remember anything from this line and above is video, and anything from this line and below is audio. If you need to add both of them at the same time, once again, if you just go to insert track, the AV track option, just insert both of them at the same time. So you'll see we'll have 4 video layers and 4 audio layers. So there you go, 4 video layers and 4 audio layers. You may not need to work with this many layers, but depending on what your edit is will determine how many layers you want and how many things you want on top of each other. To swap video layers, you can just click and drag and it'll bring it to the next layer. You just click and drag. One thing to be careful of, however, is it won't let you drag onto a currently occupied track. So I'm trying to drag it onto this car video and it's not letting me because there's already something occupying. So I'd first either need to cut it or bring it where there's nothing and I can drag it down. One more tip or important general point to mention is just the little tabs at the bottom of each of our sections. So these just change what is being displayed here. So as you can see, we have our import window being displayed. If I click on this, it now changes what is being displayed to compositions, effects, clip properties, undo history, etc. So in case you're trying to import something and what you're seeing is not making sense, you can't find where to right click and import something, you've likely accidentally switched tabs. Maybe you're trying to click on cut tool and you clicked on clip properties and that's why you can't see. So just go back to your project bin and you'll be fine. Same thing with here, you can accidentally change it to speech editor or project notes. They all do different things, but we won't get into those for now to keep the tutorial as simple as possible. But the one you use is normally the first one, project monitor. Same here, normally the first one, project bin, and here clip monitor, although we didn't really use this, but as well clip monitor. But that's an important point because sometimes people will accidentally switch tabs and then they'll not be sure, okay fine, what is going on? How do I get back to what I'm used to? How do I get back to what I understand? All right, so I'll explain one more thing. I'll just first of all delete this so it's my timeline's a bit less cluttered. So I'll delete this. So I just have my car video, me jumping over it. So I jump over, I land fine. So in case you wanted to add audio to your timeline, I just want to show you how to import that. It's the exact same way we've been doing. So I've already navigated to my folder off screen. So I'll drag this in. This is my audio file. And as you can see, it shows the little waveform icon to show that it's audio. When dragging audio to your timeline, it's important that you drag it into the audio section of the timeline. So these layers here, A1, A2, A3, A4, because if I drag it into the video, it won't let me drop it until I bring it down to the audio layer. So you see, it doesn't let me really drop it in the video section. So that's a slightly important point to remember. If you're trying to add in audio, you need to add it into the audio section. And now when I play, you'll hear some audio playing. That's been it for the bulk of these tutorials. Hopefully you've been able to learn something and some interesting techniques from there. There will also be a series of short videos covering each of these things on their own. So for example, how to cut alone, how to add text alone, how to do this alone, because that way I can get into more depth in the different sections and scenarios. And in case you're looking for just one specific thing, you don't have to watch through an entire video to find just that one thing you're looking for. But that's been a general overview of how to edit using kdenlive. One important thing to note is kdenlive, the workflow of it. So the import bin, the program monitor where we see our clips, the editing here, it's very similar to a lot of industry standard software. So like the actual paid versions of software. So if you had to transition to something, for example, Adobe Premiere Pro, which is one of the strongest, one of the most used softwares for editing today. It's a paid software though. If you had to transition to it, it would be quite seamless because the workflows follows a very, very similar structure. A few things might be shifted here and there, but you will be able to get on just fine. So that's an important point to mention in regards to kdenlive. But aside from that, you should be able to do quite a lot of powerful things in kdenlive. So it's a really amazing software. I was really impressed by it when I found out about it, and I'm sure you'll do great things. I hope the tutorial has been helpful for you. I've been Joshua Crown, and I've been your tutor for this lesson. Have a lovely day.